Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. For those new here, my name's Nicki. I'm an author and editor and I post videos here on YouTube about writing, editing, reading and all the things I love. Today we're here for a more crash course in the classics and we're going to talk about George Eliot. Now, George Eliot was born Mary Ann Evans in 1819 in Warwickshire. Her father managed a country estate owned by an upper class family and she was born on that estate. However, she's sent away to school at age 5. And the school to which she's sent is very evangelical in nature, so she grows up in her early years with a very strong faith. At 16, however, her mother dies, so she gives up her schooling, except for what she teaches herself from then on, and she comes home to manage her father's household. At this point, they've moved to Coventry, and it's here that she meets Charles and Clara Bray, and they are really radical thinkers, and under their influence, she's already started to question her faith a little bit, and they really promote that and push her forward in that and give her a new perspective on life, I guess you'd say. She spends a brief period in Geneva following her father's death, and then she moves to London, and she's intent on becoming a writer at this point. And initially she starts off working for a magazine, and although the editor officially is a man, she is really the de facto editor. She's the one doing most of the work. It's in 1854, a few years after they meet, that she moves in with George Henry Lewis. He's a married man, and they don't keep their relationship a secret in the way others do, and she really does consider him her husband in all but name. At this point she's writing. She's contributing some stories to magazines, and she's already using her pseudonym of George Eliot at this point, and she always said it was because she wanted to be taken seriously as a writer, and she didn't think that would happen if people knew she was a woman. But there's also the element of her unorthodox lifestyle to consider, and whether the pseudonym was also a way to keep the attention away from that, even though they weren't hiding it per se. Her first novel, Adam Bede, comes out in 1859. And it's interesting that although her private life is known, and it does come out that she is the author and she's using this pseudonym, but it doesn't actually affect her public standing too much. The public still read her works. She's still invited out into polite society. She continues writing, releasing a number of novels. Her last novel is Daniel Deronda, which comes out in 1876. And it's 2 years after this that her husband in all but name kind of thing, Lewis, dies. Shortly after his death in 1880, she marries John Cross. He's a commissioning agent from Scotland, and you might think this solves her reputation issues, but actually there was quite a large age gap between them, so there was still some controversy surrounding this new relationship as well. However, they weren't together for very long because she dies in the December of 1880. So, George Eliot's works. Many of her novels have a rural setting, not every single one, but I would say the bulk of them do. And they all look at ideas of the way small towns treat people who are social outcasts, the persecution of anyone who is other or different. She also takes on political issues in some of her books, for example, Felix Holt the Radical. And she also makes a lot of philosophical points through her novels. One of the things she's particularly known for is the sort of psychological depth of many of her characters. So what are some of her key works? Adam Bede, we've already mentioned, was in 1859. This was followed by the very famous Mill on the Floss in 1860, Silas Marner in 1861, Romola in 1863, Felix Holt the Radical in 1866, Middlemarch in 1871 to 1872, and finally, as we mentioned, Daniel Deronda in 1876. There were also poetry works and other short stories published in magazines and the like during the period as well, but those are the main novels. So where do you start with George Eliot? Her work is such that I really do think you can pretty much pick up any of them. However, I would recommend starting with The Mill on the Floss. I think it's a very accessible work, it's not too long, and you'll absolutely love the characters, I promise. and it's a really good example of the general style of her writing. There is Silas Marner, which is a little bit shorter. However, it's one that gets done to death a bit, Silas Marner. It's always on school curriculums and the like, and it kind of takes the love and joy out of it. So I would recommend Mill on the Floss. And then Daniel Deronda. Middlemarch is the work of hers that gets the most critical attention, and that's well deserved because it is an absolutely amazing novel. But Daniel Deronda is a little bit of a favourite of mine. I can't say why exactly, there's just something about the characters that really appeal to me. I absolutely adore Daniel. Now, there are plenty of adaptations if you enjoy watching these things as films or TV series. There have been some excellent adaptations by the BBC over the years, so I mean I can recommend pretty much checking out any of those, for Mill on the Floss, Middlemarch and the like. Daniel Deronda in particular, I think it was 2002, something around the early 2000s, they did an adaptation on the BBC with Hugh Dancy in the title role, and that is definitely worth watching if you get the opportunity to see that one. I will end there for today, but I look forward to seeing you all again very soon for another vlog. Bye for now.